What's up, you all? This is Hussein Nasser from IGeometry, bringing you another episode of Docker and ArcGIS. So, I started this series to talk generally about the ArcGIS stack and this new technology that I'm really interested in, which is called Docker, and where this technology can fit within the ArcGIS platform. The ArcGIS platform is very big, and and yeah. So where exactly Docker can be applied and be useful is the question I want to answer by the end of this series. So I've been doing some research on this, and these are all theoretical assumption and basically theoretical, you know, I don't say assumption, but they are actually theoretical, guesses to things that we can apply on ArcGIS stack from Docker, right? But first, let's see if we are recording or not. We are. Okay. So, in the last episode, what we did, in the first episode actually, what we did is basically we started to explain about the different ArcGIS architectures, I would say. So I went through this PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever you want to call it, and I pretty it up. Just made it more nicer. It was just boring graphs or circles. So I just made it a better, what, a little bit pretty. So just to make sense of these things, so these are the different architectures that we currently have in the ArcGIS stack, right? So this is like the oldest and still being used to this day. All right. So the idea behind this is you have yourself your machine basically. Why I cannot? Don't want that. I want to see my mouse when I. Interesting. Can't see the mouse. Anyway, so let's do it this way then. All right. So yeah. So the first example or architecture is basically you have your machine, which can be running ArcMap, ArcGIS Pro. You could have your custom application. All right. And then you can have on your machine the file system which presents your data. All right, this could be a file geodatabase. Personal geodatabase has been, I think, discontinued. We don't support them anymore in ArcGIS. So yeah, it's being discontinued, I think. Yeah, it's being obsolete now. So you can't actually work with access geodatabases anymore. But yeah, so shapefiles still strong going there. Yeah. And yeah, so this is the idea, right? So you can have your file system here locally on the same machine and basically consume these files. This is like the oldest way of working with files and geodatabases. All right, so you have your maps, everything here is in geodatabase, and you consume it from your client, which so happened to be in the same machine. Or I added this arrow in the event that you can actually have your file geodatabases into a shared drive, right? That doesn't stop you, nothing stop you from that, right? So you can do that, right? And then no matter where that file resides, you can still consume that file. All right, so So what kind of clients you can consume, yeah, or you can use with the file geodatabases here, really? So you can have ArcMap Pro. You can build your own basically client technically. It doesn't have so ArcMap and Pro runs on Windows, but you can actually, right, let's copy that. So this is Windows, right? So it has to be Windows. ArcMap and Pro runs on Windows. But nothing is stopping you right now from building your own Java client that can, on using ArcObjects or Java on Linux. Really, you can do this right now. Right? I never tried it, but theoretically you can do it. You have ArcObjects with Java, and that is for Linux. So you can install it and you can write your own Java client on ArcObject with Java, and then you have yourself a nice client that can consume the file geodatabases in the same machine. So this could be in Linux, right? So why I am specifying Windows and Linux, the reason is that to fit Docker within this picture, you have to you have to specify these things, because if you don't do that, then your problem is that you cannot fit Docker within this, right? Because Docker only run on Linux. Now, when I say Docker runs on Linux, I mean the Docker host software. You have to install it. I mean, the Docker containers have to be running on Linux. So some of you might already say like, hey, I can install Docker. There's Docker for Windows. Yes, there is Docker for Windows, but that is just the hosting client. So what that does is basically it installs Docker on your machine, on your Windows machine or your Linux machine, and then using bootstrap, I think, I don't remember. So guys who are expert in Docker, please correct me if I am wrong. So I'm not a saint when it comes to Docker, right? So this is very new to me, right? So yeah, what it does is that it installs that, and it installs VirtualBox, which is a Oracle VirtualBox. That's a technology, that's a hypervisor, which what it does is basically it creates another Linux machine on your Windows machine. Don't know what exactly that Linux machine is. Maybe it's Red Hat. So on top of that Red Hat, it spawns that becomes your host, Docker, right? And then on top of that, it spawns the containers. All right, why I'm saying that is that you have, because even if you have your clients as Windows, you cannot basically run ArcMap as a container. It's not possible. The container have to be in a Linux machine. So that's in a nutshell, right? So speaking of this, what we can do is basically the only thing we can do here, unfortunately, is basically we have ourselves a Linux machine, and in that Linux machine, you can write your own Linux client, right? I don't know if there's an Arc Engine. Arc Engine is another thing, so you can install it, and then you can, for that instance, all right. So if you have, like, for example, let's say this is a Linux machine. So this is every page with the ArcGIS explanation and then the Docker implementation, or like where this fits, right? So this is a Java client using ArcObject with Java on Linux, right? So that I can use Docker on that, all right? So I can Dockerize that, I guess. So what is the benefits of this, really? So why I'm benefiting? What I'm benefiting of this? right? So if this was ArcMap, let's say that you built your own ArcMap, right? So you built ArcMap, so you had all the time in the world, and you actually built ArcMap for Linux, right? Nothing is stopping you from doing that. You have the entire ArcObject for Java, and you can, if you have the resources and time and money, you can actually build ArcMap for Linux, right? Right? Nothing is stopping you, right? But is it worth it? That's the question, right? So if you have ArcMap for Linux, it's there. What happens that now you can have that file geodatabase with the maps and everything inside that machine. That's one option. And then remember setting up all this stuff, ArcMap for Linux. Well, again, this is just a hypothetical, right? ArcMap for Linux does not exist, unfortunately. All right, so Arc Pro for Linux doesn't exist, right? So what you do is basically you have yourself this nice machine, right? Or you configure this machine which has ArcMap for Linux, or the one you built, right? That's just, let's have to clarify that this is an example, right? And that, what we do is basically now, right? We have this this setup, let's say, with the file geodatabase and everything, and someone asked, "Hey, I want," and you have this file geodatabase, and it has some sort of a map, and this maps has all this data, and this data is localized, and someone said, "Hey, give me access to this data." It says, "Okay." So you can basically run Docker, all right? You can Dockerize that and then save that Docker image or whatever you set up here into a Docker image, and then spawn containers. What's the icon for container? I've been stealing icons from so Docker container image, actual picture, right? So not shopping. I don't want to shop for that. Is that how containers supposed to look? I have no idea. All right, so what it does that creates a container with this crap, right? And this will have its own IP, whatever, 192.168.1.100. Then you just point someone to this virtual machine, I mean this remote connection, and then he remotes into this or telnet and bash into this and just basically use that Linux for ArcMap for Linux, right? And that's another container, all in the same machine. So and this container will have the map, will have the setup for ArcMap for Linux, which you built, and all these things, right? So this is like a very bad example, I guess, right, guys? So that's one example, right? So all this stuff will be inside, I guess. Yeah, so let's put this here so we give you like an idea. It's not only the file, remember, the Docker here is not only a bunch of files. I would have used a DFS system or something, right? So here is actually the software is there, the dependency is there, ArcObject is installed, everything is just in a container. And then this machine, the host, will host all these Docker containers. All right. So that's, I don't know how useful is that, but still, I don't see this as very useful, and so this will save you time because you can do this now with virtual machine. You can do this with virtual machine without Docker, right? I can just copy the entire virtual machine with the data and then spawn different virtual machines, but that is too expensive. That is very efficient, in comparison. The only disadvantage is that we have the clients that uses that is that the limitation is that it runs on Windows and this runs on Linux. Quantum GIS. Wait a second. Quantum GIS. Does that run in Linux? I know this might be like a stupid question or something. I'm sorry, but I don't use that. So yeah. So we have for Linux, and I am very sure that this actually supports file geodatabase, right? Actually can talk to the file geodatabase. So that's another example. Yeah, it doesn't have to be ArcMap for Linux, guys. Quantum GIS is another option. All right, so another thing I want to mention here. So all the opinions I discuss in this channel is mine and mine alone. So even though I work for Esri, but I do this after work, and this is my personal channel. So all the opinions has nothing to do with Esri, all right? And all the opinions I say, it's just mine, and don't take it as the official word of Esri or wherever, right? So this is entirely my channel, and this is entirely my opinion, and every suggestion I give you is mine and mine alone. All right, so you can take it or leave it. That's the thing, but don't take it as it's the official Esri things. All right, if you want official things, you have to go to Esri.com. All right, that's why I do mention here other software too. Right. Alright, Quantum GIS can also be Dockerized, I guess, right? Alright, but there are a lot of things Quantum GIS cannot do, which we will discuss in a bit. Alright, so we don't have much time. I want to keep these episodes short. Another architecture is the client server architecture, right? So you have a client. This was like a file share system, right? I know this is like retarded thing, but people still use that. People are still to this day feel comfortable with working with local files, and it is also very efficient when you don't have like an internet connection or like a network connection. You don't have networking all the time, right? So yeah, that's why I have to explain that approach, the first approach, and we're gonna come to all these different approaches, right? So the second thing here, and I don't know if I have time to explain. I think I'm not gonna explain it today. So we're just going to go and show you what I did, what I cleaned this up now. So this is the enterprise geodatabase, okay, and this is the client, right? So this is the geodatabase. This geodatabase sits on top of a database platform, which is a relational database. Have to be relational, right? So far. So enterprise geodatabase, okay. What happens of that is when you have your ArcGIS client, which is ArcMap Pro, that's a client. This is a thick client, right? So these thick client have some sort of knowledge of what they call the workspace or the spatial database engine or SDE. It has it local here on the client side, and it knows, right? So you have to install or you have to have the local client libraries to connect to that database. For example, let's say I have an enterprise geodatabase on top of Oracle, right? So to connect to that, you have to have Oracle client installed here, or what they call the instant client. So some sort of a client have to be installed here. For Postgres SQL, you don't have to install a client because ArcMap and Pro comes with these binaries for Postgres, so this saves you a lot of time, right? The only thing you need when you install Postgres for server, which is here, the database, when you install it, you have to install a file called stgeometry in order for the client to create an enterprise geodatabase, right? So this is the steps how this is done. How this is done is that you install your client, let's say ArcMap, right? 10x. And then you set up a server. These can be two different machines. These can be the same machine, right? So just for the sake of argument, I am going to say that I have a Postgres, right? I have a Linux machine, Red Hat, let's say, or Ubuntu, and I'm going to install PostgreSQL 9.4 on top of that. That's just the database. So this is open source. Nothing is difficult so far. After you install that, you go ahead and copy the stgeometry.dll, not DLL. If you have Linux, it's .so. You copy it into the lib folder, and then this is still not an enterprise geodatabase. Still, it's a pure database, like any database you set up, right? You have your IP ready, you have your host machine. Now you go to your client. You open that client, ArcMap or Pro, and then you go to create geodatabase, right? So this is a GP tool. You fire that up and say, hey, this is my user, root user. This is my database. This is the Postgres instance, and I want to create an enterprise geodatabase. This is my license file. Go ahead and create it. So it will go and create an enterprise geodatabase. It will create SDE user and all this. And then you're ready. You're ready to rock and roll. Now you have a direct client-server communication, which is a very efficient communication between these in networking, right? So what it does is that you add you start to create feature classes, and I have a book to talk about all these geodatabase concept. It's called Learning ArcGIS Geodatabases. It's very tailored for beginners. Let me see. I don't want to let you guys think that I'm doing some sort of an advertisement to me myself or not. I never shop my books, but this is just for the sake of this argument, right? I'm talking about this. So this Learning ArcGIS Geodatabase, right? It's you can find it on Amazon, and this book is tells you of a very basic from the so it tells you how to build a geodatabase, but it's using an example approach. So this is a company called Bestorants, or from Belize, which is inspired by Breaking Bad. If you watch that, so that's like some sort of the last seasons. All right, so yeah, I always in my books I always put some sort of a TV show. If you read my book, you'll find some sort of a mention to the TV shows. If you do find them, just send me the page number for fun. Yeah, this I mentioned a lot of Game of Thrones in this, some characters, a lot of Breaking Bad here, a lot of Breaking Bad here. Here, a lot of games, a lot of video games that some of my favorite video games characters are here. So I always like, yeah, I'm a gamer too, not only a GIS geek. All right, so that's a good book if you want to learn about basics of geodatabase. People were complaining that it's too basic. What the fuck happened? All right, yeah, people were complaining that it's too basic. Yeah, it's very simple. I don't know. Yeah, we want something more complex. Yeah, so it talks about this basic how to create a feature class, what is an enterprise geodatabase. It helps you set up an enterprise geodatabase SQL server and all these things, you know. It's tailored for someone who doesn't know what a geodatabase is. It's not tailored for expert. You know, it will not make you an expert in geodatabase. It will get your feet wet into the geodatabase world. All right, so that's a good book. All right, all right, all right, all right. So we have a Postgres SQL installed. You create a geodatabase, and then you start doing all this stuff, right? All right. Now I'm not gonna talk how we. I have an idea how to apply Docker here, but I'm gonna talk about this in the next episode. So I'm gonna skip here to talk about the pre. I just preed this up. Server is another thing here. ArcGIS for server is a layer. What the problem between this and the client server architecture is that you have to have a thick client, right? You have to have this thick client, ArcMap or Pro or whatever, have to be installed and have to talk to that. You have to have binaries. Imagine if you want to set like 150 users to connect to one database. That is insane, right? Some people use Citrix, like a virtualized environment, which basically allows you to it's some sort of a thick client, right? So what Citrix does is that it have like a let's say it limits the clients, right? So it'll have like 5 clients, and then this 150 machines connect to these 5 clients. They are load balancing. This is one of Citrix advantages, but still thick, right? So here where comes ArcGIS for server, which abstract this geodatabase into services, so these guys can consume them. Like the same, see this guy? He still can consume ArcGIS server. He can also skip that and talk to the database if he have networking access, or that is. Right? He can also consume services. ArcGIS client can consume services from ArcGIS server and view, edit. Obviously, you cannot do every single thing that you can do with the client server. Client server, you can do everything, right? Anything in the world, right? Services, on the other hand, it's not that difficult. It's not that easy, right, guys? You cannot just migrate and expect everything to work fine. You have like a million functionalities down here, okay? All right, so yeah, give us some break. So you cannot just abstract everything into services. And there are a lot of million functionalities here, like create feature, and create feature is not that difficult. That bad example. Bad example. So yeah. So these are like create geometric network and all these things, build network, network dataset, topology stuff. This, imagine all this. This is a client server, right? But here it's JSON stuff and REST, right? Endpoints. Everything is HTTP'd between this and this. And here it's actual physical networking traffic going on between going down there. Yeah, this is not just one box, by the way. This is a more complex thing. I'm gonna talk about this obviously in the 3rd or 4th episode. So that's why I want to take every single one. In the episode, I'm gonna explain one Docker example that we can fit. Guy, this is not written on stone. If you do have ideas for this or for the rest, do suggest, right? This is an open suggestion, right? This is an open word, right? All right, so mobile browsers, the JavaScript API have to. So let's quickly wrap this up. So we have like the browser can communicate with these services. Again, these are just services. These are raw services, raw with the RAW, right? Raw services. This is database, and this abstracted the raw services, maps, not even maps, they are just services. So if you consume that, you will see something like server 6 data. I think it's yeah, you'll see if you consume it, like this is an example of a REST service, right? So you see something like that. This is so boring. I mean, not boring. Boring is the wrong word. So these are the actual services, right? The raw services. So still you have to do some work here. You have to build an application to consume the services in a sexy way. A mobile application the same way. You have to use runtime, ArcGIS runtime, to consume these services and build cool applications, right? You cannot just point to the service and do stuff. I mean, you can. Nothing is stopping you. You can use this 911 calls and just, I don't know, where is that? That's a bad example. That's a GPS service. That's your map, and then in the map service you can just, for example, export the map, right? You could do stuff, identify. You can send this HTTP request to this endpoint and get result and consume it, right? But that's actually not a very user-friendly way of doing that, right? ArcGIS the client, maybe this is the best way. Like, this is the actual interface, right? The ArcGIS client or ArcMap, you can add a feature service and treat it like a layer on your map and just edit it and have fun with it. You know, this is the same. You have out-of-the-box applications that deal with services, raw services, and allow you to edit a single service, you know. But still, you know, the problem with this that you have multiple ArcGIS servers and these become isolated, right? You have like multiple ArcGIS server instances and these services here, and then one government entity or whatever company have their ArcGIS server, another company have their own ArcGIS server, they're hosting and out their data. So how can we communicate these million instances of ArcGIS services into one coherent, nice cloud? You like that, guys? You like how I introduced that? No, you didn't? Damn it. All right. That's what brings us to I feel like a tutor. I hate that. Are you guys bored already? I feel like fucking PowerPoint. I feel like a school. Today we're gonna explain that. You have your assignment, guys. All right. So yeah, ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS solves that problem. Portal for ArcGIS can point to multiple ArcGIS servers and group them together so they can dance together, you know? They can dance. You can have, like, you don't care what's behind this portal. There could be one database, one ArcGIS server. There could be 13 ArcGIS server. I don't know why I said 13, but yeah. There can be 5 enterprise geodatabases. There can be so much stuff. But that's the cool thing. You don't fucking care. You don't care. Because whatever is inside that, you talk to the portal, and portal allows you to share. You can, this portal is an actual, let me show you. Oh no, I don't want to open that. ArcGIS Online. I think ArcGIS.com, right? Yeah, so this is an example of a portal, right? ArcGIS.com. Yeah, that's an example of a portal. Right? So the portal you can create maps on top of it, you can publish map, you can share maps with others, you can send maps to the cloud. You can imagine all these collaborative things you can do with Portal or ArcGIS Online, you know? So that's the cool thing about this technology, is that you don't care about the infrastructure as a client. See, I don't need to code. I don't need to write code. Browser is enough. Just point their browser. I wish I can show you, but I don't know. I don't remember my password now for the ArcGIS Online. So yeah, you can point to that and then publish a map, write a map. I mean, publishing a map requires ArcMap or something, authoring software, right? You have to author a map in order to publish it. But you can still read a map from mobile. Like, let's just go through a good example here, right? So you can, in fact, publish a map here, author a map here. Let's say all the free Wi-Fi's in Redlands, right? In the city I'm living in. All the free Wi-Fi's in Redlands. So you do that. I made a nice map. It's a point feature class and all these nice stuff. I visited all the coffee shops in Redlands and I've noticed where coffee shops or restaurants that have Wi-Fi or the restaurants that doesn't have Wi-Fi. And then I started collecting this data. I mean, it makes more sense to have it here, but let me continue. So I just created the feature class here and I published the map. It's empty, doesn't have anything, right? Let's see. Let's just say Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi in Redlands, and it's an empty feature class. Publish that. It's a nice map. It's not even a feature class. I don't know what a feature class is anymore. Mobile consumes that map. Guess what? You have an application called Collector. Collector, go there while you're on your mobile phone. Hey guys, do you have free Wi-Fi? Yes, we do, sir. All right. Thing, you click and add. Boom, a feature goes up. That's it. Syncs up, right? Oh, you don't have internet? No problem. Add all these Wi-Fi locations, and then once you have internet, sync up. Boom, pushes up to the internet. So look at all this cool technology that we were able to do. All right, but I don't want to sound like whatever, guys. So the idea of this is to explain Docker, but I wanted to explain every single architecture so we can fit Docker within this picture. So in the next episode, I'm gonna crack up every single one of these and open it up like an egg, right? And see what's inside it. You cannot see what's inside it. It's broken. Damn it. I don't know. So you're gonna break that up and see what's inside it, and we're gonna see where Docker can fit and optimize and make our setup more efficient. All right, guys, I hope you didn't fall asleep while watching this episode. If you don't, then I appreciate it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Alright, I'm gonna see you in the next one. This was the second episode of Docker and ArcGIS. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Not much of a Docker talk. We did explain some of the Docker stuff here, but not very much. So we're gonna explain. As I told you, I want things to be like smooth as possible, and I don't want to dump so much information on top of you guys. All right, so you guys stay awesome. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Goodbye.